Welcome back to Issues of Faith. We have with us the Executive Director of Lifeway Research talking about civility in our public discourse. What killed American public discourse? That's the question in a new report that examines civility and evangelicals. So the big question in this world that we now live in is our leadership. And I ask, are they reflecting us or are we reflecting them? So you have this report that says civility is at an all-time low, essentially. What do you do with our leadership, our elected leaders, who certainly don't, in many cases, seem to be very civil in their communications?
I think as voters, we need to be supporting candidates that actually express more civil behavior. And that's one way to begin to change the conversation. But another is to not simply be yes men for our political party. We don't find perfect political candidates, and we actually don't find perfect political parties. So whichever one we choose to be involved in, we should be trying to make it better. And when we asked evangelicals, have they ever expressed disapproval of words or actions of those in there who share their political views normally? Less than 4 out of 10 have actually done that. So kind of said, hey, on this issue, no, you stepped out of line. No, you shouldn't say that. No, that doesn't reflect my beliefs, even though most of the time I'm with you. Trying not to be simply, yes, I follow everything my party says, and instead showing some discretion, saying there are times that I'm fully on board, and there are times where you've crossed the line, and I need to point that out.
But in this world, you criticize one thing, then the big concern is that the other side would win. And so no one does criticize their side. So how do you get past that fear?
I think that's a very fear-driven mentality. And it's one of those that I think the audience for this research should, again, they shouldn't be fearing kind of man's ways of fighting over things. And they should say, God's actually done some pretty amazing things in countries with really backward governments. So we shouldn't really be fearing some of those ultimate ends that we may not want. And we should really be trying to be faithful in the day-to-day.
So you take this survey and you take this information and do what with it? So you're going to churches, or what do you do with all of this?
So we're essentially trying to create a conversation. We're trying to encourage evangelicals to be looking at their own beliefs and their own behavior to say, is it in line with what we see in Scripture? And for non-evangelicals, this is a chance for them to ask some of the same questions and say, am I acting in civil ways? Is my initial response one of win at all costs? Or am I trying to create a different kind of dialogue in our nation that is actually more respectful? And we'll hear the occasional call for that, the occasional, almost a longing that we miss those kinds of respectful conversations, an actual debate where there's substance instead of sound bites and name calling. And I think the way to get back to that is we have to personally model that. And it means changing our friendships. It means changing who we follow on social media, so that we actually have a little bit of diversity in what we're hearing and what people are saying about us.
Among the recommendations, the report suggests reading print media instead of TV and social media. I can see that. So you're recommending read, different publications, maybe don't sit in front of partisan-fueled television for hours at a time.
Thoughtful pieces that are a couple pages long. Those are things that bring in more facts, and you start to realize, oftentimes neither side has a monopoly on the facts or a monopoly on what is right in a given situation. And you start to begin to advocate for some wiser paths that actually would be a compromise between what two parties might be saying. And that's how we've seen the most success historically in our nation in the past, is when people actually sat down and dialogued about the problems of our day.
And so it's interesting this is coming out from evangelicals, because it seems like some would say now evangelicals are winning some of these arguments as far as political power. But it sounds like there's talk among evangelicals that I guess some of these victories there's a price that's coming with the discourse in some of these victories. And you're saying we've got to dial it back. We've got to tone it down. We've got to look at things differently. Is that the essence of it?
That really is the essence of what we see in Scripture, where God is looking at our hearts. So he's not looking at the trophies on the shelf, the votes that went our way, the seat count in Senate or Congress. He's looking at have we done the right thing? Have we brought honor to his name with the way we've done things? And in some cases we have, and in some cases we've not.
You said one of the questions was how have you changed your mind based on reading Scripture? Mm-hmm. And you said 4 in 10 had changed their mind based on that. And I mean, I would question how many have changed their mind based on an argument from Facebook? You know, how productive are these arguments that we get into?
We very quickly go into name calling, putting people into categories, putting labels on them. You know, instead of actually dialoguing on the issue, we're forwarding somebody else's message and again, putting a label on them that this is what we're against, instead of saying why. You know, what is it about their argument that needs some thought, needs some work? So this is actually saying, let's be a little more respectful so we listen to their side of the argument enough to actually respond, rather than being really simplistic about it and going straight to name calling or putting them down.
So this came out at the end of last month. We have about a minute and a half left here. What has been the reaction? We have a minute left. What has been the reaction? How has it been received?
Definitely some good conversations about it. You know, it's one of those things where a lot of people's first reaction is still, I want to win. And so, you know, to do the hard efforts of changing our behavior is not something that's going to come easily. We see that only 4 out of 10 people have received guidance from their church. So that is one of the settings where some of these conversations need to happen.
Well, thank you for being here. Scott McConnell, Executive Director, Lifeway Research, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Issues of Faith. Have a great day, everybody.